everybody, welcome back to the Tess Files. Today celebrates my 30th birthday episode, which I'm very excited about. No, today is not my birthday. My birthday was actually last week in early May. But I wanted to make a video, first of all, just for me to kind of remember who I was when I was 30 and what I was thinking. But also because I've had so many questions asking me a lot about what it has been like going back to university in my very late 20s and, you know, changing careers at that phase of my life. So I was really keen to just have a bit of a sit down and a reflection. And kind of to that end, I've also had so many amazing questions from all of you guys on Instagram and YouTube as well, just asking me some general things about my life and about med school. So I thought, let's make this a combo video of Q&A and 30th birthday stuff. I'm just going to start by talking about what it feels like to be 30. And this is pretty groundbreaking, guys, but it feels the same as 29. And I think people always talk about that sort of thing as like, you know, you have your birthday, one day you're one age and the next day you're 1 year older technically and nothing changes. But I would more like to reflect on the change that has occurred for me over the past probably 3 years. And so I've really viewed my late 20s as a massive time of transformation. I can't even stress enough how I am not the same person I was when I was in my early 20s. And I just think that is attributed to, you know, your 20s are this amazing time of flux and growth and change in your life. And, you know, you really kind of find out who you are in those years. And for me, I really came into my own around kind of 28 was when I started to really realize what I wanted in my life and started to make some really big changes about how I was living my life and my attitudes, I think, towards my life. So being 30 hasn't changed anything too much. No, I haven't had a big freak out. Some of my friends who have turned 30 recently kind of said that they've been having those oh my god moments of like existential crises. But for me, turning 30 has felt like a massive, I guess, achievement, and I feel really proud of where I am and I regret nothing. And yeah, I think that comes down to being on the pathway that I want to be on. So I had a really big moment when I was about 26, 27, where I realized that the career path that I was on was not for me. And that was a really hard time because you spend a lot of time investing in your career, or well, I did anyway. It was a big focus of my life. And then to realize pretty slowly, actually, that it wasn't for me was really daunting. And I didn't really know what else to turn to. And I kind of went through a lot of phases of, you know, maybe I should stay in this career and then build things outside of my life, so have other hobbies and other interests that fulfill me, or I could go along and find a career that actually was going to be, yeah, more fulfilling and something that I was more driven to do. And so, you know, spoiler alert, as we all know, I chose the career option. And so then I went on this big period of self-growth over that time to get into med school, which is, I don't need to tell all of you, a massive journey in itself. So yeah, for me, turning 30 is not daunting. I feel really happy with where I'm at. I feel really proud of my achievements so far. And I think that, you know, being 30 and being in my first year of medical school is fine. It's so great. I literally wake up most days feeling pretty thankful and grateful that I am where I am, and that not only have I moved my whole life across the country, but when I got here, I've been so lucky to meet such amazing people and be really supported and, you know, live in a house with great people and, you know, making really nice connections and to be really enjoying what I'm doing. And look, don't get me wrong, med school is not easy. It's hard and it's come with a lot of challenges. And, you know, this whole process, I have not been, you know, grinning ear to ear every day. That's not how it works when you go through a life transition. But overall, I'm so happy with the path that I've taken so far, and being 30 makes me feel like I'm an adult and I'm doing everything that I want to do, and I'm embarking on this amazing adventure, and I just can't imagine myself being anywhere else. So yeah, you know, don't be scared about turning 30. If you're still on the 20s side of that, just embrace it. And my tips would be just to work out whatever it is that you want to do and chase after it, because that's what we're here to do, right? We're just here to have a good time, really. So yeah. So I'm going to start by looking at some questions. I got my laptop here actually because I was just so overwhelmed and stoked with all of the responses I had from all of you guys. Just it's so nice to be, you know, kind of building this really nice community and getting to know all of you a little bit better. And yeah, I'm so keen to answer some of your questions. So I hope that these help with wherever you are in your journey, whether it's a med school journey or your life journey or anything. First of all, Maddie asked me what block and or topic I've enjoyed the most at med school so far. So I'm still very early in my med school kind of career. I'm only just in the second block. So my first block was foundations, which is a lot of the basic sciences, and the second block has been musculoskeletal, which is, you know, fairly similar to a lot of the stuff I did in physiotherapy. So I don't have a favorite block so far. It's probably too early to say, but in terms of topics, I absolutely loved immunology. I thought that was just so cool and mind-blowing, the way our body's defense systems work, and I absolutely was just so enthralled by like understanding what all of those different cells do and how they communicate with each other and how they you know, stop us from getting sick. So yeah, immunology was very, very cool. This question is from Claudia, and I think it's a great question. I've been asked this a lot by people, mostly my family and friends, when I first said that I was going to go to med school and I was in my late 20s, which is do you want kids, and how or when do you think you'll fit this into a medical career? So I don't know if this is going to be a controversial answer, but I'm not sure if I want kids. I have been through lots of transitions with this. I always thought that I wanted kids when I was, you know, in my late teens, early 20s, and then I went through a big period in my mid 20s where I really thought that maybe I was one of those people that didn't want kids, and it's been a really big kind of thought process for me. As I'm getting older, I am getting more clucky, and I think that having kids would be really lovely, but yeah, I'm not kind of the opinion that it's something that I really have to do in my life. So for me, I think having children, I'm just going to flow into that if that happens. If I'm lucky enough that I meet somebody amazing and we have kids, then that's awesome. If I don't, then that's okay too. But in terms of fitting it into a career, it is certainly something that I considered when I made this choice. And I've also spoken to a lot of people about it. I've spoken to my mum about it. I've spoken to other like people who are doing med school and doctors about it. And I went to this really cool panel discussion not that long ago with a bunch of female surgeons, and they were all incredible people, and they all talked about having children, and they just said that there's no good time, you just do it when you do it. And you know, we're really lucky in the climate of you know, the medical profession at the moment, where it's becoming more open and more understanding, and yeah, you just have your kids when you have your kids and you just make it work. And my mum has echoed those sorts of sentiments as well. She just always says to me, you know, your life is your life and you just kind of adjust to whatever happens. So yeah, I'm not concerned if I do decide to have children, you know, in a few years time or longer. I'm not concerned about fitting them into my medical career. Yeah, I think you just, if you really want kids, you'll make it happen. From Sarah, she asked me which GAMSAT courses would you recommend, or which ones did I do? So I used the Des O'Neill books. The books were amazing, and so many people I've spoken to use those as well. They're really great. I will link up the top here if I can work it out with my tech genius, how to link a video, but I did a video on my GAMSAT tips, and in there I talked a lot about tutoring and courses. So I had a tutor that was probably my preference. I found my tutor on Gumtree, he was awesome, but I also did do a course, and it was through the MET-C Institute, and that was a basic science course, which I found really useful. It was quite pricey, but it did help me get a grasp on the basic sciences because that was my weakness. But like I said in my GAMSAT video, it's kind of up to you, like what resources you have and how much time you have, whether you think courses are going to be helpful for you or not. Jacqueline asked me how I have found the transition to meeting new people, and so fine. I was really kind of nervous when I first came to Sydney because I knew one person here, and I didn't really know. I thought that Sydney Uni was going to be a really giant cohort, and I had this weird perception that there was going to be a lot of people there who had all done undergrad together and would know each other, and I would be a bit of an outsider, and that is just so not true. My cohort is one of the most lovely, open, yeah, group of people. They're just delightful. I haven't met a person yet that I'm I haven't liked. So I've been really lucky, and I think because, you know, we're all coming into med school and so many people have come from interstate and even internationally, everybody has been so keen to meet new people. So yeah, it's not been a problem at all. I feel really lucky to have met so many awesome people and to feel really supported in my new life in Sydney. So if you're worried about that, don't be. I've heard similar things from other med courses around Australia too. So yeah, no problem at all with that. How am I finding the course structure so far, and do I find it very fast paced? Was from Jacqueline as well. Yeah, it's so fast. Like, the amount of knowledge they throw at you in every session is just insane, and it is really hard to kind of keep up. And particularly, I don't know if it's because I haven't been at uni for a really long time, but yeah, it's incredible. I have struggled to keep up a lot of the time, and I'm still learning strategies as to how best to study and how to keep up with the content. It's challenging, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I think that that's not new. Everybody knows med school's challenging. So yeah, it's fast, there's a lot of knowledge, but you know, you just find out a way to get through it. And you work in groups and teams with all of your, co-students, and yeah, you just work it out. I've had a couple of questions from Paloma and from Lily just asking me how I support myself and if I can still work. Yes, I do work. I work about one 8-hour shift every week on the weekend at one of the hospitals here in Sydney, and I also had savings from working for a long time as well. So I actually have recorded a video about budgeting in med school that I will be posting soon, so keep an eye out for that. But in terms of juggling time and working, look, it's not easy, and like, I don't know the proportion of people working versus not working, but a lot of my friends don't work, and sometimes I do feel overwhelmed with trying to work and do med school. But for me, it is important that I kind of keep up my clinical skills as a physio. It's something I'm really passionate about doing, and I really enjoy going to that job every week. It's awesome, I love working there. So for me, it's kind of a compromise that I'm willing to make. But yeah, some people are really lucky and they don't have to work to support themselves, and yeah, I don't know, it's really just a personal preference about working, but it is certainly achievable to work, and our university recommends that if you do work, you only do about 10 hours or less a week. So yeah. So Caroline asked me, do you think that in the interviews you were looked upon more favourably having a physio degree? I don't know. I'm not really sure. You don't get feedback from your interviews, but I do know that having that experience really helped me when I was answering the questions in the interviews, because I was able to take a lot of the questions they were asking me and put a personal spin on them, and kind of say to them, oh look, I've had that experience. And I think that, yeah, just from my experience going through interviews, I do think that the interviewers like if you can relate to something personally, and if you can give an answer that is genuine and something that you've experienced before. So I think that having a clinical background did help me, but I also have so many friends who are med students who aren't clinicians too. So I think in the interview, it's just about making sure that you can be as empathetic as possible and kind of keep your views really broad. Yeah, so I think it helped, but I don't know. So Dr. Charlene asked me what are the ranges of GAMSAT scores in my cohort. So I obviously haven't gone around and chatted to every person in my cohort, but from the scores that I've heard, there are people who got kind of from the very low 60s all the way up to the very high 70s, and even higher. So yeah, all ranges. So that's kind of what I've heard. I do think that med schools publish this information on like the last year's intake of the ranges. Well, I'm sure that I saw some of that sort of stuff online when I was going through this process, but probably just is university dependent. But yeah, a really wide range of scores. And I guess that just comes back to my last video about GAMSAT scores and how it's really, there's a massive range of flux with all of that sort of stuff, and it comes down to so many other facets when they select you. Jindal B asked me, and I think this is a really great question, did I have a cutoff for how many times I would have sat the GAMSAT before I would have given up? And yeah, good question. So when I first started trying for the GAMSAT, I sat it 3 times in total, and I got the score that I needed on my second time. But when I first started doing it, I told myself that I would try it twice. I had a moment of real existential crises and was, you know, just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do if I don't do medicine. Like, medicine is the only pathway that I can see myself doing. So I did sit it again, and I got a worse score the third time, and I think that's because I just was over it and I hated studying for it, and I found it just really awful actually. So yeah, I don't think I would have sat it more than 3 times if I hadn't have gotten in. But that is a really personal choice, and like I have heard of people who sat it like 10 times to get into medicine. So it's a personal thing. It just depends how much you want to do it and how determined you are, and also like your life circumstances as well. You know, financially it's really expensive to keep doing the GAMSAT, and emotionally it's a really big investment, and time wise there's just so many factors. Just do whatever works best for you and your situation. Lily asked me what made me switch from physio to start studying again. It's really hard to articulate. I did a video on why I chose medicine, and so I would recommend checking that out. But for me, it was something with physio wasn't fulfilling me, and I can't kind of put a finger on it. I just wasn't feeling satisfied in that job anymore, and it kind of happened really gradually over a few years, and I'm not sure whether that kind of coincided with me getting, you know, further into my career and having more knowledge of the patient's journey. And I don't know whether also because I am a physio that worked in a hospital and I could see what the doctors were doing, whether that influenced it as well, because if I'd worked in private practice, I'm not sure if I would have had the same transition. So yeah, I don't know, but I just became less and less satisfied with my job as a physio, and I basically was super jealous of all the doctors, and I just wanted to do what they were doing. So yeah, that's kind of it. Okay, so I'm just editing the video, and I just checked my phone to see if there's any more questions, and there was one question that I thought that I just couldn't finish this video without answering it, because it was a question that I actually think is really important, and I'm sure a lot of you have been feeling this way. So the question is from Laken, and it is, when you decided that you wanted to get into med school, how did you stop doubting yourself? And it's just such a great question, because I think that doubt is something that gets in so many of our ways when we're trying to push ourselves forward and to achieve our dreams. And the answer to that is that I don't think you ever do stop doubting yourself, but I think that you just work out how to believe in yourself more to counteract that. So I'd be lying to you if I said that every time I tried to get into med school and I failed, I didn't doubt myself even more. There's always that little voice in the back of your head that tells you that you're not good enough, or that you know, you're not smart enough or talented enough, or all of the things that your lovely ego tells you sometimes. But it's, I think for me, the biggest thing was just believing in myself regardless, and telling that little voice to be quiet, and, you know, reaching out to people around me who really believed in me, and, you know, talking to them when I was feeling at my most low. And yeah, there were certainly times along the way when I, you know, it was a 3-year journey for me to get into med school, and there were certainly times along the way where I thought I wanted to give up, and just speaking to family and close friends about that really helped me. And just knowing that, you know, whatever decisions you do in your life, you're doing them for yourself only. And so you just have to find the thing that brings you joy and just pursue it at all costs. So yeah, it's okay to doubt yourself, but just make sure that you believe in yourself even more, and push yourselves towards your goals. So there you go. Those are my best reflections on being 30, and I hope that I was able to answer all of your questions thoroughly enough. Please keep sending me questions. I love chatting to you guys. I hope that my experience is able to benefit all of you, and you know, motivate all of you to follow your dreams and to, you know, accomplish everything that you want to accomplish in your life. So yeah, thanks for watching as always. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing, and yeah, follow me on Instagram to see me muddling through my day-to-day life of being a now 30-year-old med student. All right, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.